On 104.5 Vibes Radio. Man, hiyo ni kombi ingine noma sana, man.
Gitu mali huko. Gitu.
For me, Petra, bro.
Uwa.
Cheers. She's a baddie. 104.5 Vibes Radio. Karibuni sana kwa show. Of course, it's a holiday. We're saying happy Jamhuri Day.
Yo.
To you and everybody else.
Njano Zoo.
Yeah. And remember, you can actually stream live on www.vibesradio.co.ke, as well as the fact that you can find us on the frequency right here in Nairobi. We are on 104.5, right?
Yeah, kabika mawaida manze Mombasa 98.7, Nyeri Maika 98.8, and of course Meru, and my people out there 107.1. Big up all the people them streaming online from vibesradio.co.ke. Love no bad out there. You see me? Happy Jamhuri and this a Pan-African Tuesday.
Kev, it's been 60 years.
60
of independence.
Of so-called independence.
You really feel free? Do you feel free?
I don't feel free, man. I don't feel free. As long as I got the slave name.
Yeah.
Can't be free.
As long as they hate your dreadlocks.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You can't be free. You see me?
Yeah.
As long as you're still wearing their clothes.
Yeah.
You got their names. You're still following their religion.
Yo, bro,
yeah, you
brother,
can't be free.
let me tell you one thing. Yeah, ulichekile comment ya the guy Mike Shaira. You know, there's a time in this country when if you are a young, energetic man out there, you're extroverted, you're making moves, shaking hands, socializing, trying to do business. It's almost as if East State, Kenya mazeane bro, gava haikuwa inakutakia. You know, it's quite sad, man. People were so scared of even leaving their safe spaces. You know what I mean? So we are here now, and we're so excited to hang out with you. Kumbuka, my guys, you can actually find us online on www.vibesradio.co.ke. We're going to have a fire conversation with our brother over here. Anaitwa Glenroy Waston. He's the Secretary General, Global Africa Congress. And today it's all about the Africa unification. Karibu sana, Bwana Glenn.
Asante sana.
There you go. Your Kiswahili is it's actually good.
Yeah, catching up. But as long as he's in Zanzibar.
Yeah. Glenn, man, today is we're having this conversation on a special day for Kenyans. It's been 60 years, right? And when we were starting this conversation, Liluliza wa Kenya, very simple question. Do you really feel free? Do you feel like we're making progress? Do you feel like you're
independent?
You know, you're in an environment where you can thrive, you can call your own shots, you can determine your own future, you can take care of your family without any fear. And many people are saying, yeah, I mean, I'm good. You know, are you surprised by that response?
I think I would be, because I don't think it is the case. The idea that you have freedom to make decision, to do whatever you want, is not that way for Africans globally, and certainly not on the continent. So we need to reevaluate how we relate to the rest of the community, the rest of the global community, because you will find no matter what Africans want to do, someone is there who wants to
call the shots, control
and decide what we should do. And that's not a definition of freedom. So therefore, a simple answer is not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Are we making progress though?
I think any change is progress. I think any movement and people's consciousness is certainly changing, and that's progress.
That's right.
But the material progress that we must have and should have by this time is not there.
It's not there. And we need to be asking questions. Why not? So we're also joined by our brother, Pigeon Odimwengu. Pigeon, this is not your first time here. But we had to have this conversation on Jamhuri Day. Let me sort out your microphone, raka. So exciting, maze. My guys, kumbuka, the phone lines are going to be open in a bit. 0719012700. Don't forget to give us a call. If you've got any questions for our guest today, Bwana Glenn Watson. He's the Secretary General of the Global African Congress. Actually, sort out him. Now, Glenn, what's the agenda in Kenya? Why are you here?
We're here for a solidarity visit.
Right.
There was also a conference in the early part of my visit, the end of November, and a Bandung conference, which covers a whole range of issues, including the main objective of our organization, which is reparation. It's not the only thing. It's reparation and repatriation. It's compensation for the crimes of colonialism and our enslavement. You know, because I tend to find that people forget colonization.
Right.
Colonization was simply the enslavement of our people on the land. The behavior of Europeans in Congo, the behavior of Europeans here. And we must remember the global context of what happened in Kenya. This was a little bit after the Second European War, and they want to call it World War, but we know that Europeans were fighting, and they wanted to drag the rest of us in and then call it a World War, but it should be redesignated as a European war. And what happened here in Kenya was almost immediately after they had been liberating concentration camps in Europe to recreate concentration camps in Kenya, because that's what it was. Concentration camp. And what's happening currently in Palestine should focus our mind and remind us that the crimes being committed there are the crimes that were committed here and have yet to be compensated and repair, which is what reparation is about.
It's interesting you put it like that. You know, just about a month ago, we had the King of England. He was here, and it was a massive event. You know, government officials were welcoming him. He toured pretty much the whole country, or certain parts of the country, I guess, majority of the country. And in certain quarters, Kenyans were insisting that the king has to apologize for whatever happened in the past. And they have to give us reparations. But that did not happen. He recognized the past, or all the ills of the past committed by their governments, but he didn't really apologize. Why are you surprised?
I don't really care. I'm not
that he didn't
here
apologize.
to obtain his apology. We can't eat it. We can't spend it. He can keep his apology. He needs to pay compensation. He needs to repair the damage. Whether he apologizes in advance or not is a matter for him. And let's face it, we're seeking apology from people who will not be sincere about their apology. So why do we care? I understand there's lots of people who believe that that's a route, that's a part of the process. I don't agree. They say that in order to, when you get an apology, you can then take legal action. There are lots of people in prison who don't apologize and are still in prison. So they've been declared guilty. We must declare the crimes that have been committed against us without any requirement for them to apologize. But I accept that I'm probably in the minority in that there are many people who want this fictitious objective. And I think, you know, I've said this time and time again, I see it like a monkey trap. A monkey trap is you build a box, you put a shiny object in it, you cut a hole in it where you can just get your hand in, you pick up the shiny object and you can't get your hand out because you're now made a fist. All you have to do is let it go and get on with the rest. And as far as I'm concerned, let it go, let them keep their apology. Let's get on with the requirement of repairing. They know what they've done. They're very, very articulated in writing down and recording their crimes because they didn't believe it's a crime. They don't care. So I'm not caring about their apology.
Glenroy.
However, he should have been demanded that he come with a clear commitment to repair, to pay reparation, to compensate, and assist in the repatriation of Africans back to our continent.
Like a lot of Kenyans that they awaken at the end, they being on the minority side, a lot of us believe that the king just coming here to apologize was not enough. What a lot of us black people we wanted was the king to let go of the mechanism that they were using and to free the African resources, which question did not even come to anything, you see. So I was asking you, Glenroy, as a Secretary General of the Global African Congress, the Global African Congress, what is it all about?
Okay, well, first thing is that I'm the Secretary of the UK chapter. There is an international body. I'm not the Secretary of that. I'm the Secretary of the UK chapter. The Global African Congress came out of Durban, 2001. But it must be recognized. I always try to remind people that from the very first time any African was put on a camel to be enslaved in the so-called Middle East, or put on a ship to be enslaved in other parts of the world, the Caribbean, the American, they were saying, hold on, what the hell is going on? Am I going to get paid for my labor? Yeah. So the demand for reparation has always existed. The Rastafarian community in the Caribbean continued that light, kept that light alive. But what we achieved in Durban in 2001 was to get the international community, with the exception of the Americans and the Israelis, so not surprising, to agree to what we knew. It wasn't a case of suddenly the light is going to flash in our eyes as well as theirs. It was a process to make them admit that this was a crime against humanity. It wasn't just simply some kind of accident or incident. It was a crime, a deliberately fostered, organized crime that every nation in Europe were involved in one way or other. When people think of the European, they think of countries that had major shipping and military process. But if you think of a country like Sweden, which most people would think they didn't go out and enslave anyone, they didn't have ships sailing the sea and capturing people. What they did was facilitated that process through their provisions of guns, chains, etc., the tools of enslavement. So they profited from our enslavement. Every single nation in Europe, and we should be very clear about that. We're obviously aiming at UK, US, and those major factors, but not without consideration and around the issue of Arabization and the continued enslavement in that region of our continent. But to continue about the creation of the Global African Congress, once we had won that process in Durban in 2001, the agreement by the African delegation, and I don't like the term African and African descendants, because what are we descending to? We're Africans. So we agreed to meet within a year to ensure that our gain in Durban was not lost. So we made the plan to meet within a year to form an organization. It obviously wasn't named at the time Global African Congress, and indeed the process we went to was somewhat interesting in the sense of people had to vote. We had to vote on, I think, about 10 different options and eliminate them as we go along, and that's how we ended up with Global African Congress. But remember, very soon after September, which is when the conference ended in Durban, something happened. And they want us to call it September the 11th. And then they wanted the world to not worry or not deal with what was gained in Durban. We were supposed to now turn our attention to fighting terrorism.
That's interesting.
It's very convenient that happened. And I think those people with theories about what happened in regard to September 11 ought not to be dismissed. I don't know if they're correct. I'm not following their analogy. But to try to redirect global attention and global resource after African people had gained that process in Durban, I think they find it interesting as a coincidence. I
want to go back to the historical injustices committed by the colonial government from the UK right here, for example, in East Africa, specifically in Kenya. You mentioned compensation is the only conversation you want to have. The amount of money, because I even saw some communities were demanding about 10 trillion right here in Kenya. It's almost hard to quantify. My question to you is, Glenn, is it likely that they will compensate our people?
It's a must. It's a must, and it's not about what they want. It's about what we will fight for. Now, people bring these figures up. It's unimaginative, you know. But the reality is that it's not just about money. It's about changing our infrastructure. You know, people might remember during Ebola, and I can't remember the country this happened, but during Ebola, one white nurse, a male nurse I believe it was, got infected with Ebola. And the British government sent an aircraft to pick up that one person. Why? So they can bring them back to London to be treated. So they had the treatment in London. You're sending a plane, presumably not full with people, send the medicine that you're sending back. And when you do that, unless there's a single seater on that plane, take some of the people who were ill. But that's the way African people are being treated. If you're a European, they will go to all lengths to make you well. But our people are dying. And when we talk about the continent, I know you said here in Kenya, but think of what's happening in Sudan.
Absolutely.
Think of what's happening in Congo. Think of what's happening in other parts of the world, not only on the continent, that is not given the attention that Ukraine and Palestine is given. And remember the difference in the treatment in Ukraine. What was the reason? They were Europeans. No one had any qualms about saying that and making that very plain. We are surprised about whites, people, suddenly being caught up in war. But I lived in the UK for many years. Brexit spent a great deal of time vilifying Eastern European. And I can't think of anything further east than Ukraine. And yet, suddenly, they were no longer the villain of the peace. You know? I don't know if it's because Brexit has gone wrong. But what the British did in Kenya is not a secret. It's known, it's documented, they wrote it down. And there's still people suffering. And there's a fallacy that seems to enter in times like this, that all they have to do is wait until all of those people that they committed the crime against have died. Well, we have ancestral memories, and we will not forget the crimes. And no nations here on the continent, or in the Caribbean, or South America, because many of this treatment happened both in North and Southern part of the American continent.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Remember, we are live on www.vibesradio.co.ke, as well as on channel 172 KTN BTV. That is hashtag KTN BTV on Star Times. Kumbuka pia unaweza tupata on the frequency right here in Nairobi. We are on 104.5, right, Kev?
Yeah, man.
And if you're in Mombasa?
Kama kawaida, manze. If you're in Mombasa, you know the drill, my people. All you got to do is tune your mainstream radio on 98.7, 98.8 is in Nyeri, and of course 107.1 in Meru. Welcome to your number one show, MVP. This is the Morning Vibe, and today we're having a very crazy, big,
sensitive,
educative conversation.
Yeah, we're hanging out with Glenroy Waston. He's the Secretary General UK chapter of the Global Africa Congress. It's all about the Africa unification, and as well as our brother
PG.
right here, PG Odimwengu. PG is not new to this conversation here on Morning Vibes. We're coming back to continue. Remember, don't move, clear up, even don't move. Right now, I can see it's 28 minutes after 7. Good morning and happy holiday.
Vibes Radio is the African Renaissance.
Africans are suffering everywhere. When they come back home, you still make them suffer. Why? What did these Africans do to you? Let's protect one another. Let us be one thing. Let us love our continent. Let us fight for our continent. Let Africa one day realize its own freedom. Let Africa one day stand on its own feet and say, I own my minerals. I own everything that belongs to this continent. Let Africa alone be able to say, enough is enough. Away with colonialism. Away with the imperialists. Let the unity of African people reign supreme in all of us. We are Africans, and we are not going to apologize about that.
Africa, arise. Vibes Radio. This is the Modern Vibes on Vibes Radio.
Africa Unite, Bob Marley, Kevin Badman, we are Morning Vibes. Guys, it's a Pan-African Tuesday as well as a holiday. Lakini sasa hata maneno ya holiday wachana nayo. Here we're having a serious conversation, joined by our brother and our senior, Glenroy Waston, Secretary General, UK Chapter, Global African Congress, and of course another Pan-African activist, anaitwa Pigeon Odimwengu. Karibu sana Pigeon.
Nashukuru.
Now, today is a holiday. Leo wamesema ni Jamhuri Day. And of course, as Kenyans, we recognize this day as a day when we got independence, when Kenya became a republic, Pigeon. Sasa tulianza hisho nikauliza my guys, do you actually feel free as a Kenyan, as a young man, a young woman out there? Are you thriving in your own environment, in the community? Do you feel like you're being paid your worth, for example, when you chase your dreams out there, And the response I was getting was ilikuwa different. Kuna watu walikuwa wanasema I feel free, kuna watu wanasema oh, you know, we've come from far, we're progressing as a people. I'm curious, as an individual, Pigeon, this day today, Independence Kenya, are we even really a sovereign nation, bro?
As it has been said, I'm told, we are still singing the anthem and the flag. That's what we sing every day. But even the singing of flag and anthem has never changed our welfare. Because you wonder, the manifesto of 1963 is still the manifesto that was used in 2022. So where are we heading? Maybe we don't have the chains in our hands, but we are mentally and actually physically handicapped, just that they are not visible enough to us.
Mentally?
Yeah, mentally and physically handicapped, just that the chains are not so physical to us to see it. Because you wonder, will you tell, of course I've said we've met the freedom fighters who fought before independence.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
you guys actually met them with Glenn.
And when you tell them, they tell Atuna Uhuru.
Atuna.
Because they fought for land and freedom. They don't have even any. So, if you want to ask whether we are really free, ask those people fought for that freedom first. They will tell you the right answer that you should now judge. What did they envision? And because what they envision, they have never achieved it. Who are you to celebrate that you're free? Unless you've stolen a lot from what they struggled for, then you're free to drive your vehicles.
You know, it's interesting you're mentioning that. Nakumbuka pia our forefathers, some of the people who started this conversation, our pioneer politicians, those leaders, kina Jomo Kenyatta, Jaramogi, walikuwa nasema their dream for Kenya is the day when we will do away with poverty, ignorance and disease. But if you look at the conversations on the news, if you engage with Kenyans on the ground, if you look at our institutions, when you visit hospitals out there, our schools are dilapidated. Things are still a mess. Why are we still here? What's the problem? Why are we not, quote unquote,
60 years down the line?
60 years down the line. It's the same problems our forefathers, maybe even our ancestors went through. The same problems we're trying to sort out. What is hindering this progress?
They should tell us, those who have gone into power in the name of trying to change our life, they should tell us why they have not changed it. Because it's very funny that we don't lack resources. We collect almost 2 trillion, like our revenue annually. So they should tell us why 2 trillion has never changed our life since 1960s. While their life is changing. In fact, Elder here do say that the reason why people are poor is because people are rich. That's the reason why people are poor. Because you cannot tell me that we cannot make it while in the same setup, some people have made it to be billionaires. So what does that tell you? That our poverty and our state of affairs is actually man-made. It is man-made by people who want to get advantage of it. Because if you made it to be rich, how did they not make it to be rich? Do you want to tell me what shortcut did you use? Maybe education, amani ujanja, as we say ujanja. But if ujanja exists in the same leverage platform, why don't it be ujanja, you see? But at the end of the day, what I will say is that we've lost 60 years. We might, of course, some people will say that because we don't have independence. But the question again is, we've been collecting revenues and giving them. So will they tell us that the white man takes our revenue, take it back to their country? That's not an excuse. They should tell us. The MP should tell us 100 million annually for CDF. Why are they taking it? That it has not transformed us, you see? So what I think again is that we have always been shortchanged, you see? People have been always going to elections with emotions that we are going to free ourselves, we get to another cage. We free ourselves, we get to another cage. And it's the right time that we must think critically. Whether do this political class have solution for us? Because if they have been here 60 years and they have never changed anything tangible in our life, then what do we need to do? So is that the conversation we need to have? Whether the every year's 5 years elections and voting this politician can transform anything to us? Because we give them every year 2 trillion, my friend. 2 trillion or 1 trillion for 60 years. That's how much they have been getting.
Unajua kuna watu wana blaming our governance model. What I'm saying, but this democracy thing is not working out in Africa. Maybe that's why we're still used to that domineering colonial governance model.
But Kevin,
could that be the problem?
But Kevin,
It's
even
a
if
system
you're practicing democracy, an MP got 100 million annually.
Yeah.
So how did the governance system of democracy took away his 100 million that could not transform to a society? Let him tell us the president is getting 3 trillion annually. Based on whatever other democracy we applied, like in the last year's budget, it's close to 3.6. Now, how did democracy take 3.6 away from him, not to implement what you want? Because you see now, he's traveling on chopper. His cabinets are getting salary. But now, the government is facing serious salary backlog here. They are not going to pay people. And you wonder, they have borrowed, they have collected, and they cannot dispose it. So how do you blame democracy there? Where did the democracy take?
So what's the way forward? For example, now, the issue of land. We know it's a very emotive issue. Na kulikuwa na the report by the Crickler report.
The Ndungu and the TGRC report.
Yeah, the TGRC report.
Yes.
Kulikuwa na vitu mingi hapa wanasema hata hawaje implement. Land, man. For example, land is, to me, it's one of the key issues, right? We know very well. We were talking about off-air how, for example, the UK government owns millions of land in Kenya. Yes. How can we sort out how can we have that conversation?
The first question is, the land belongs to who?
To the Kenyan people.
To the people. So before that white man came here, the land was belonging to who?
The people.
Now, when did the government take over the land to give you a title deed of your land? And that is the key question. Because when the white man came, he took the land from the people and decided to use it. And when he left the land to government, who was not the owner of the land. The land was your land, not the government land. Now, when he took back land to government, now government came up with what we call now title deed for your land. And that's how, within the government, they've been able now to manipulate that your title deed for your land for them to get more land than yourself. The key question is, I've said it and I'm not afraid to say it, that is on record that the Kenyatta family own 500,000 acres of land. Do they have a right to own that? Can they justify? Were they having that land before the white man came in? And how or which process did they actually become legal owners of a land that they never had before? You see?
And is it possible to be clear that records were kept, records were known? As I said before, the Europeans are very meticulous in their documentation. So they know what they stole. They know whom they stole it from. So we know where the land should go back to. And we can easily find that out. But, the song that Bob was singing,
Unite,
about Africa Unite, he was singing that at Zimbabweans' independence.
Yeah.
And he wasn't saying Zimbabwean unite.
It was Africa.
He was saying all Africans unite.
For the sake of our children.
And it's because the crimes that were committed, and Europeans tried to pretend that, this is Francophone, this is Anglophone, and the same crimes are being committed in all of these countries.
Yeah.
So it's systematic, and we can't pretend that it's accidental. And therefore, when they return the land to the wrong people, deliberately, what authorization did they have to return it to who they decided to?
Right.
And that's clearly an effort to frustrate the process, to ensure the continuation of the dishonesty. Because what they did right across the Caribbean and other places is create interim governments, put in place corrupt people that they know will continue the corruption. But we don't call what they do corruption. Colonialism was one thing in itself, but the process by which they colonized were corrupt, dishonest, legally and otherwise, morally.
But Glenn, when somebody listens to you, they're saying, wow, that's very powerful, but it's idealistic. Because if you're talking about, for example, redistributing land and taking it back to the rightful owners in Kenya, somebody can think it's a complex issue. Very emotive, like I said. I mean, is this even likely, or is this a pipe dream? We're constantly going to have these conversations, and yet our leaders have done everything that they can, everything possible,
Kevin,
to not have that conversation.
Or is it like, for real, like you see, like they say the Africa was partitioned by non-Africans in the absence of African leaders. So these African leaders that who are already on the seat, like right now, systematically they are still following the colonial order that was there.
Yes.
Do you think this the thing that is hindering us as African to move forward? Because the thing is not only African happening to Kenya, but it's like the whole of Africa.
What is clear to me, and you know, when you talk about democracy, and I don't believe that democracy has failed, we've not applied it. We've not done what democracy is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
People's votes are not being valued. But when we talk about the land issue across the globe, consultation of people doesn't seem to be taking place.
Okay.
It's being done in a stratospheric position that it doesn't apply to you and I. And what we have to do is anywhere we find that any discussion is taking place about the distribution of land, we as a people need to be there. You see, there's a situation that does not talk about much going on in Zimbabwe about possibly repaying the thieves of that land. Now, they created a process, which I understand is also been promulgated
When
across...
you say repay, you mean compensate almost?
Yes.
But it's the Africans who are compensating the white people.
The
Who
people
stole
who
their
took
land?
our land, you
They're
compensate them.
compensating them.
Doesn't make sense.
But it has
And
been happening
if you-
even in Kenya.
And if you think about the process of enslavement, what they did when they ended enslavement, especially in the British colony, was to pay the murderers and the rapists and the enslavers instead of the people whose
slaves.
liberty and freedom
So how should
and
we go
labor has
about
been
that?
stolen. So it needs a conversation that includes every person in each nation. But importantly, because this is a global issue, global Africans need to be involved in that conversation.
Right.
Because we each bring something to the table. Now, somebody out there, I'm sure, say, oh, we can't talk to everybody. Well, we can set up structure in which you're consulted locally. That consultation form part of a national process, form part of a global process. But the other objective will be, oh, well, each nation is at different stage of development. Human beings are all at the same stage of development. So let's actually apply that process.
So you mean
we
like-
know dishonesty when it's done to us. We don't need anyone to tell us.
Yeah, so you mean like the way Gavi had done it, like creating a UNIA thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that every other angle that people can have a place they can go and tell their grievances.
And let's not say and allow this obstacle to be created. Oh, we can't, everybody want to be part of it. Because when we have the conversation about reparation, you know, some people say, oh, it's been too long ago, you know. And I always bring this up that, and an apology for anybody who's of the Christian faith out there, but, you know, I saw a Christmas tree downstairs. I saw a celebration of 2,000 years ago, or what's supposed to be 2,000 years ago. So if we can't talk about things of 500 years ago, but we can talk about things of 2,000 years ago. But then it even changed, because we've discovered that Africans, colonies, African, all over the globe under the British control, were paying for the payment given to enslavers up to 2015. So every child who was over 18 in 2015, African, European or whatever, their taxation was going into paying. And if what Pigeon referred to as the possibility that African nations are paying into European countries, especially Britain, up to 2015, Africans were paying for the enslavement of our brothers and sisters across the globe. So it's not some distant issue.
All right.
So when people try to tell us that, oh, well, you know, let's forget about it, it's been a long time ago. Hell, we only stopped paying for
All right,
it.
hang in there. Hold on a bit. We're coming back to you, Pigeon. Nataka sasa tuongee this thing for our president.
Yes.
He's packaged himself. Some say, in fact, he's a Pan-African. He's the ideal Pan-African leader.
Yes.
But some say he's a puppet.
Yes.
You know, he's only here to protect the interests of the West.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a bit. Right now, my guys, remember, we're hanging out with Glenn Watson. He's the Secretary General, UK chapter of the Global African Congress, and of course, a Pan-African activist, the one and only Pigeon Odumwengu. Now, kuna chapa hapa hivi unafaa kushinda. Yeah, because I want you to have an amazing holiday season with your friends and your family. I want to put money in your pockets. This is all about tazama utuzwe. Buda, hapa hivi nataka ujijenge noma, and it's very very simple. If you want to walk away with some money, the only thing unafaa kukua nayo ni pay bill. The pay bill number right here is 145656 and the account number is KM. Yeah, maza, you can bet with as little as 20 bob. Kwa unataka kujishindia kakiru or even 50 bob. And just like that, unaweka your amount and instantly Buddha unacheki do ime reflect kwa your M-Pesa account. Remember the pay bill number is 145656 and just like that guys, unaenda kujijenga Buddha. Nimekwambia Kev, Christmas, holiday season, hata kama sisi waras, we have issues with this Christmas holiday. Generally, maze, you need some money in your pocket to move around, at least buy a meal for your friends. Nene mambo ya tour, watu wanaenda Mount Kenya kama sisi. Yeah, we need to sort you out. Ama ni aje Kev?
Mount Zion, we coming there.
So remember, kitu na nibamba by the ukicheza tazama is if you play, if you deposit 20 to 50 shillings, unaweza jishindia kitu kama 20,000 to 50,000 shillings, right? And if you deposit about 51 bob to 99 bob, you can actually win yourself 100,000 to 300,000 shillings. Now kumbuka, pay bill number hapa hivi ni 145656 and the account number is the initials KM. Just like that, Buddha, you could be on your way to making good cash. Good cash. So, my guys, www.vibesradio.co.ke as well as channel 172. That is on hashtag KTNBTV on Star Times. Ingia kwa hii conversation. It's all about unification, Africa unification. We're hanging out with our brothers, Glenroy. I told you, he's the Secretary General, UK chapter of the African Global Congress, and of course, Pigeon Odimwengo. That is, he's a Pan-African activist. Tunarudi in a bit. 7:48 right now.
Positive vibrations on the morning vibes.
Yani trio mio FM1 inaitwa tunaweza.
Tunajaribu kuweza.
And I'm telling you as a Kenyan, my friend, happy don't feel bad about yourself. As an individual, you need to get out there and be the strongest version of yourself.
Yeah.
Najua Kenya kuna mashida mingi, but you owe it to yourself to do everything necessary.
Yeah, man.
To take care of your family.
For shizo.
Follow your dreams.
Manze.
Take care of your community. Be resourceful in one way or the other. You can actually be resourceful by listening to Glenroy and Pigeon Odimwengo. Wanakupatia pa knowledge ingine noma sana. If you're wondering who Glenroy is, he's the Secretary General, UK chapter of the Global African Congress. And today we're talking about Africa unification, the struggle for reparations, restitution, and repatriation. Pigeon Odimwengo is also here, but kabla tuendelee na hiyo conversation, I just want to remind you that you can actually walk away with some
dinero or Benjamins.
Mula, the dollars.
Mangotore.
Actually, not the dollars, the shillings.
The ceiling.
The ceilings. Changed my mind about that dollar maneno.
Dollar thing.
So if you want to walk away with some money, the only thing unafaa kukua nayo ni simu. Alafu hii pay bill number. The pay bill number is 145656. Yani 14. Yeah, 56 ni
56.
145656. Once you've done that, kwa account number weka the initials KM. That's right, KM. Now, if you want to walk away with about 20,000 shillings to 50,000 shillings, all you need to do is just deposit about 20 bob, hadi 50 bob. Back up hivyo blue. Watu semanga bado blue. Ama mbao, squeeze ni mbao. Ama chwani. Ukiweka hiyo do 20 bob hadi chwani, do yote katikati ya 20 bob hadi chwani inaweza kujenga na vile nimesema 20,000 to 50,000 shillings. Na ukideposit 51 bob hadi 99 bob, do yote kati ya 51 bob to 99 bob itakujenga na 100,000 shillings to 300,000 shillings. And my brother, my sister, Kenyans are winning out there. Mad, it's crazy. So grab your phone. Remember the pay bill number is 145656 and the account number is the initial KM. So that's all, my guys. Back to the conversation. Kev,
as you were saying, Manze, Mr. Glenn, we're talking about the festive thing. Yeah, like today we are celebrating our Jamhuri, and we came to realize that it's only in Africa. The African continent and the African race, the black people, they are the only people who don't have a festive on their own. Whereas when you look like the Israelite, their biggest celebration is the Passover. You go to India, they have their Diwali. You go to the Chinese, they have the Day of the Rat or something. But African, we only celebrate their
white man's day.
Whatever they came with, the Christmas, the Roman Christmas. Why do you think is becoming hard for the African to be told their truth about the Holocaust, about the Atlantic slave trade that took place? Why do you think in our education they don't want to teach it?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is not call it a trade. It wasn't a trade. It was kidnapping.
Yep.
It was an act of war against our people. So we weren't trading with anyone. We have many days, but people seem determined to fragment it. African Liberation Day is still there for us to celebrate. However, people want to call it Africa Day. As if they're
the July something.
Frightened to say 25th May.
Okay.
It's as if they're frightened to say liberation. Let's not call it liberation. We understand that they're trying to say that after all race election in South Africa, somehow a liberation was not necessary anymore. But that just put context to the lie. We are still fighting for liberation. We are
not yet liberated.
To struggle, and it's right across the African
continent
and the sixth region. The sixth region is where other Africans out of the continent are dwelling. The rest of the global community. We have Kwanzaa. Yeah, people might have resisted it. And it's an American thing, and there are connotation around Jewish holidays and so on with our candles and so on. But Kwanzaa is a real thing that we need to recapture. But there are also many, many traditional things that we need to enhance and remind ourselves that we existed before these guys arrived. People like to pretend that Africans were wandering around in the bushes or on the beach and, had no existence until they were stolen. And when you see the image of when we were stolen, you will always see Africans in loincloth or various degradation.
Naked.
As if we didn't have clothes. As if we weren't living a life before they arrive. I think it was Miriam Makeba says, what the white man wants you to do or presume is that nothing happened until they arrive. And then history starts when they arrive.
Is it
it's
true
not
that
the case. We had our culture, we had laws, we had process that we were living by.
Glenn, apparently, I was talking to my aunt the other day, shout out to Auntie Oko, and she's got a massive library, but she was telling me the problem with African education, for example, is we don't have enough documentation about our systems from way back by our ancestors, our governance model, for example, the type of education system that we had. Is that true, that we don't have enough documentation? Africans haven't written enough books, maybe there are movies, stories aren't really being told.
It's not only not true, if it doesn't exist, we can do research to find out.
That's right.
People are finding out when a dinosaur existed and where it was and the life it used to live, the food it used to have. Can't we then do the research about our continent? So we are deliberately being told that we cannot rediscover our position.
That's right.
And it's a lie. But why the lie? Why tell a lie like that?
Why now?
Deliberately to frustrate us and to frustrate the idea that we existed before. So we can do that. We knew the boundaries and borders that existed in our nation before Berlin decided to draw lines on the map.
That's right.
Draw lines through community. And don't tell me they didn't know where those communities were when they drew those lines.
They did.
So they knew this. Right? So that's deliberate. And one of the things that people should ask as part of our repair is, did you know, Europeans, what the borders and boundaries of our people were before you got your pen and paper out and drew lines? And they did. And as I keep saying, they record these things. They have this masochistic attitude about recording the crimes that they committed because they believe they're above the law. They will not be affected.
Glenn, I'm going to have to cut you short. Let's listen to the news and then we come back with this conversation. It's 8 a.m. right now. My guys, it's all about the Newswire, courtesy of Denis Aseto. Shikilia hapo, don't move. It's all... guys, we're talking about Africa unification. I'm sure you can already hear. www.vibesradio.co.ke. 20 Kasi. Good morning.
This is the Modern Vibes on Vibes Radio.
Hey man, Capture Land Chronics.
Carry me, go home.
Big tune that is. 104.5 Vibes Radio. Hashtag Morning Vibes. I'm your local energy provider, Otada the Beast.
And of course, Kevo Badman right here, manze. You are the MVPs on your number one show, Morning Vibes. Happening live each and every other morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. 4 hours of non-stop, manze. Reasoning heavy today with the one Glenroy.
Yeah, man.
Glenroy Watson, Secretary General of the Global African Congress. And the story about today is about the theme is all about African unification, the struggle for reparation, restitution, and repatriation as a mass. And of course, we have our guest, manze, on my left hand side, Mr. Pigeon, who happened to be one of our every time host.
The main Pan-African activist in Vibes Radio. Pigeon Odimwengu.
Yeah, karibu tena.
Karibuni sana, guys. Yes. Remember, you can stream live on www.vibesradio.co.ke. Just gotta remind you as well that tuko hapo hivyo pia on BTV, hashtag KTN BTV, channel 172. We're loving the feedback and the conversations up hivyo. The comments, we're going to be reading them. Tukiendelea na conversation. Now, just a quick reminder that there is some money besha to be won, right? And hapa hivi unafaa kukua tu na simu yako. Get your simu yako, alafu kumbuka paybill number is 145656 and the account number is KM. Now, kitu fiti na hii game ni unaweza cheza na 20 bob hadi 50 bob. Hiyo inaweza kujenga na kitu kama 20,000 hadi 50,000. Now, let me say it again.
Mapesa.
20 bob hadi 50 bob, hata 30, 40, 50 there, inaweza kusort na 20,000 shillings to 50,000. Sasa unaweza jishindia hata 30,000, 40,000 hadi chwani maze. Now, ukabet pia na 51 bob hadi 99 bob, yeah? We can win yourself 100,000 shillings to 300,000 shillings maze. Cheza na kiwango kidogo sana kuanzia 20 bob 2, amepe unaweza cheza na hiyo kwanza 51 bob 24/7. Draw ni kila hour. Guys, let me just make this clear. I know you need money. Mara ngapi hapa hivi tumefungwa phone lines and you telling me, "Oh Kev, oh my god, the economy is so messy. Oh my god, I'm so worried about how I'm going to spend the holidays with my friends and my family." Now I'm giving you a reason to be excited because you can actually make yourself some money. It's very, very simple. Once again, remember the pay bill number is 145656 na account number ni initials KM. Unaweza cheza na 20 bob hadi 50 bob to win yourself 20,000 shillings to 50,000, and if you play with 51 bob hadi 99, unaweza hapa hivyo na yote hadi 60 bob 70 bob, inaweza kujenga na 100,000 shillings to 300,000 bob. Yes, noma kabisa.
Noma pesa na hii kuku.
Jo. Buda, tazama utuzwe. Noma, we'll be talking about this as we continue with the conversation. Right now, just want to jump onto my brother Pigeon. Now, Pigeon, just the other day to Liskia. In fact, we saw when our president was in France.
Yes.
Mgaya Salipata standing ovation. He had a serious speech to do with the climate change. And I was just reading some articles and people saying, "Oh, you know what, Kenyans, you guys, I can't believe it, man. You guys don't really like your president like that. We appreciate him. He's the ideal Pan-African." You know, it's interesting, Pigeon. Tulikuwa hapa hivi na mdem fulani kutoka Tanzania. She's from the Tanzanian Youth Parliament. And she went hard. Hapa hivi akasema, "Oh my god, how could you guys not appreciate your president? You know, he's such a good guy. He's nimse wa church, he's a true Pan-African. He's young vibes, If you look at how the president is going about policy, hapa hivi mtaani, if you look at how the president welcomed the king, you know, he didn't really talk about mambo ya compensation. He was just, you know, showing the king, alikuwa anampeleka kwa tour around the country. According to you, is the president working to secure Kenyan interests, especially when it comes to now global conversations, foreign policy? Ama he's a puppet to the West?
He has said he's looking for us job outside.
Apparently. So litafuta kazi ya huko Israel for guys to go work in farms in Israel.
So I'm wondering, we could elect a president who is going to look for job in other presidency or a residency. So those people elected their president to actually get them job. Then our president is going to ask their president to get us job in their own country.
So we developed their countries.
No, leave even alone that. That is modern slavery. Because at the end of the day, why do you want to pick us to another country?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go work in countries you know our historical, of course, from the history of what they did to us. Now you're taking us back there.
He said they're going to get the money and bring it back home.
Let me
bring
tell
the
you,
dollars here.
Let me tell you. So we don't have money here. I will tell you, I've done a report. It was in London Stock. Go and check 101 London Stock Exchange listed companies in Africa.
Okay.
The report was released in 2016 by Africa, the War on Want. There are companies like the Talo company, this one in Turkana, that control 960 million barrels of oil in Kenya.
Right.
That lady was bringing 100,000 barrels of oil that was equivalent to 17 billion. You remember the saga of Njoku?
17 billion, yeah.
100,000 is equivalent to 17 billion. Then somebody is controlling 960 million. How much is that? So you are telling us we go out to look for us job. Leave alone that. If the European Parliament gave him a standing ovation, why don't they give us our land?
Wow.
Why don't they pay our whatever? If they want to give him standing ovation and they love him of his talk, then they should pay our reparations.
Maybe he thinks that's not an issue.
No, you see, of course, maybe he's not aware of this. And second thing, you know, Ruto is more of a liberal or conservative. He's not that progressive enough to think about the people. And I think even his community servant. You know, the Koitalel, the head is still not here. We don't care even if the head is rotten, we need the head back.
Wow.
The skull and the rest that they took, we need it back. But apart from that, the president has become a tourist. Of course, he has defended himself of not being a tourist. There's nowhere in his manifesto he said he will tour anywhere. Nowhere in his manifesto.
43 trips so far.
Yeah, his deputy president is asking us to give them 10 years when they said they want 100 days. So basically, these are jokers who don't know where they're taking the country. They don't know where they want to take us. And basically, they know where they want to take themselves. And they want us to take them to where they want to take themselves. And that's why they're trying to move around and trying to put some figures that, for example, why are they pushing for CAS? Well, they are saying they don't have salary to pay civil servant.
Exactly.
And they want to add 50 CAS, you see. So basically, this government has no direction, and if they don't know the direction, they should sit back. We show them the direction, because we are not going to take it anymore.
Now, Pigeon, we recently saw coups in Western Central Africa.
Yes.
Kenya did not stand in solidarity with some of these African states.
Yes.
In fact, our president...
Kenyan government.
The Kenyan government. Not,
Kenyan government,
I
not
like
the
that
Kenyan.
clarification, point of clarification. Kenyan government.
Yes.
In fact, we saw the president, our president, denounce Ule Prezwa... Traore, yeah.
Yes.
Now, my question to you is... what does this mean when it comes to our this whole agenda of the unification of Africa? Is Kenya really for it?
Just yesterday night, I was in an interview in Grenada channel at around 2 a.m. In fact, I slept at 3:30 a.m. because to their time it was 6 a.m. And we were discussing the Kenya mission to Haiti.
It looks well given the
so that was
sleepy head.
That was the Caribbean discussion on why Kenya is going to Haiti. And I was present to give my position on why Kenya is going to Haiti. Now, Kenya is going to help Haiti and actually rejecting Niger and Burkina Faso and still supporting Israel. My friend, no matter which God Ruto worship, we don't care. At the end of the day, himself and his masters, the USA should come and pick him and take him to be a governor in their country. Because he can no longer continue moving around and actually condemning Africans who are trying to struggle for things that even he know. It's not that Ruto don't know the context in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and anywhere else. He's aware. The only problem is pushing for climate agenda, in fact, he should ask himself, who are producing the biggest emission in the world?
Of course, it's the West.
No, he's running around climate. Did you elect him a climate ambassador? If he wanted that, he should be a climate ambassador, not a president.
Wow.
Because he's giving now Mau Forest to some white companies to own 40,000 acres to reclaim it. The question is, so you're giving them our forest to reclaim it for us. Then you are still saying of cutting the loggings and going on with the loggings. My friend, Ruto need to sit back with his team and his government and think about himself. And really think about where he want to go. Where he want to go.
But before you jump in, I wanted to find out the position of the African Global Congress when it comes to the coups in West and Central Africa.
The reality is that our people have been suffering under neo-colonialist governments
for far too long,
and they should be swept away. Now, you cannot simply believe that every coup is a good thing. It's not the case. We have to remember what happened to Osajo for Nkrumah. So we need to be analytical about it. And it's not even just simply any changes in improvement. We have to put demands on those people who have stepped up to replace the rotten leadership that we've had in Niger, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and other places. There will be other coups because there are lots of rotten leadership that we have inherited, and leadership that doesn't seem to know that they're rotten. Somebody needs to tell them. But on this issue about sending Africans into a war zone, because that's what Israel is currently on. It's a war zone. Wow. Will Africans go into Palestine or go into what? Because many of it is in Palestine, by the way. Lots of people don't do that. They talk about Israel. People are being asked to work in the illegally occupied areas.
Right? Kenya is sending a team there.
1,000 Kenyans.
Leave Haiti. Kenya is sending workers to
Israel. Yeah, not even talking about Haiti. I'm talking about Israel.
But in Israel, this is the occupied part of Israel. The further stolen land. It's all stolen, but now more stolen land. Even the American, in their mealing out way, are condemning some of the behaviors of the settlers. Now, if Kenyans are there during hot conflict, will they be expected to take a position? Have they been briefed to protect Israeli settlers? What is the definition of these workers going there? Now, you may have rightly recognized a contradiction where Palestinians, because of the dreaded economic situation, were working in Israel, were working in the occupied areas. That's a dichotomy that they have to sort out. Why are we throwing Kenyan people? And not only Kenyan, I think Mali. So Mali is also doing that. And as I understand it, I'm not read everything around what's going on politically, but I understand it is very clear that he supports Israel. He supports the American position of the genocide, the live televised genocide that's taking place in Palestine.
That's right.
How do you do that? How do you come from what's happened to the people of Kenya by Western government to support this atrocity against other people who are being attacked? It's an extraordinary somersault by somebody. People are saying is Pan-Africanist. I didn't understand the reference to the young lady in Tanzania.
Yeah, she was just talking about how Tanzanians really admire our president and they think he's the ideal Pan-African leader because he's out there fighting for, rights of East Africans, I guess. Somebody
who came from Magafua, somebody who lives in the country. Yeah. The work that Magafua, is she comparing it with what Ruth has done?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, people have rose-tinted glasses and they wear them all the time.
Just see what you want to see. So, like Glenn, I'm so fun liking what was happening. So, in short, the Africa continent, especially the people, not the people in the leadership, the real people, they've seen that there's something wanting. It's not running. The democracy ain't working for us. So in short, it's like you're saying, the leaders, the so-called leaders that we have so far, they are puppets of the Western world.
Yes.
In short, just like that.
Nkrumah recognized this many, many years ago with his documentation about neocolonialism and neoliberal states that are being created. So when the people recognize that, we must give whatever support we can where they want to change it. Now, even now, the very people who created the problem seem to be the ones who are manipulating changes and pretending it's in our interest. So we do need to support when people want change. Now, either these coups are popular coups, and it appears to be, which is creating a direction. And as I understand it, they're also moving towards a federal cooperation among each other. And when you think of what Nigeria was trying to do, we know who the neo-colonialists are, who are carrying out the work of imperialists. So when we identify them, and people, can change, people can correct their errors, but when we identify them, we must expose them and we must talk about them. We must be willing to have a global African conversation that doesn't restrict itself by boundaries and borders. Yeah, we're Africans.
Yeah,
we're not Kenyans.
We're Africans.
Tanzanian, etc., etc. Those are other people's designation, and it's either we're going to put on their coat or we're going to discard it.
Yeah, I really wanted, of course, Glenn also to share the experience, but I'll say, having come from the lakes and moved to the mountains, we went to see the mountains. And indeed, the mountain is bleeding.
Okay, talk about that.
The mountain is having serious injustices that have never been corrected. Meeting some old women at old as almost 98 could say how the white man could take a fresh bone and insert it into the ants, siafu.
So you're talking about the Mau Mau veterans?
The Mau Mau veterans. Insert the bone into ants, then could insert that bone with ants, safari ants, into their private part, and the ants were moving up to the noses. And these people who went through all this atrocity do not have land. We went to Muranga and met Brigadier Njoki, an old woman at almost the age of 91.
Yes.
Who is actually staying in a rental house that does not have electricity, and she has to pay rent for that, or else the house will be closed or locked for her. And this is somebody who went in the forest at the early age, and a brigadier having actually some bullets on our leg up to date. We went to meet the veterans of World War II, one man close to Del Monte Farm, who has actually been moved to be a squatter after fighting for they are called World War, which was the European war, never been compensated. We actually experienced the historical injustices in Kiambu just yesterday when you were at Githunguri, to see the whole areas of where there was a gallows where our ancestors were actually taken in. We checked so many, of course, historical facts in that area. The shrines are there, the caves were there, and all these issues are not discussed. And when we sat down in Muranga with these elders, they told us there's no independence. So if we claim we are independent, and those who fought for independence feel that there's no independence, and indeed, they have a reason to feel there's no independence, because what could you convince Brigadier Njoki, who is paying a rental house, that is independent?
Yeah.
And these are injustices that I think we might not blame the white man too much for such mistreatment 60 years after independence. We must actually blame our governments for mistreating our elders and our veterans. We award our athletes with some gold and whatever. Funny thing, this old brigadier I'm talking about has a medal of recognition of a hero.
Really?
So she's a hero in a rental house, and the government could afford to give her the medal but could not check where she's living. So I think these were part of the painful moments, and as he came back to here to check these historical facts, he actually get the real test. Some of us even don't know the real test, but he got the real test. And we went to the archives, we saw everything that goes on in the archives, the writings and the struggles. But in reality, my friend, I don't think if our ancestors, the Mau Mau fighters, can forgive us until we fight for what is just
as we wrap up this conversation, Glenn, what is your assessment of all that you saw when you went to the mountain and the lakeside?
I have to be honest in the sense that my emotions and my perception have been tuned to the history of Kenya, the history of the Mau Mau. Because people think of the Mau Mau as having fought a war in Kenya. But the global community respect the history and what happened. And you need to judge the timeline in the other liberation struggles that are going on. So I don't want to overblow my feelings because it's my emotion. But the fact of the matter is I met people who were at the heart of the liberation struggle and paid an ultimate price. None of us can really experience that. But we have to appreciate it. And I have to say, both the conference I went to and the things that I've seen about how people are living does not tell me that they are being appreciated, are being in any way compensated and recognized. It's as if in Kenya there was a censor to say, don't talk about it.
Don't teach it in school.
But the rest of us, as Africans outside of Kenya, I believe,
you have this
all we have been reviving and paying respect to the struggle and the commitment of the Mau Mau people. And I was surprised about the lack of knowledge about it. There's more knowledge about the Mau Mau outside of Kenya. And people should be very careful of that. Because we will end up in a situation where Africans out of Kenya are celebrating the contribution that Kenyans have made, and Kenyans are not doing it. I had no sense of today in all the time I've met people here. And that says something about 60 years. 60 years is supposed to be of some significance in most places, in most institutions. But I didn't see that. I didn't hear that yesterday or any of the days of those people looking forward to today because of its lack of significance and because of the lack of 60 years of not resolving issues like that.
Yeah.
We were led to believe, and this is probably a further controversy that we'll get into at another time, about when the court case was taken to the UK. I was there. I went to the High Court. I went to meet those comrades that came over because we revered the struggle that took place here.
So, as you think, Glenn, should these Mau Mau stories, the history itself, be taught to our children because it's no longer in our curriculum?
It's been taught outside of Kenya. How could it not be taught inside Kenya?
I think somehow
the ground not
is being done.
Building?
It's like systematically is being done.
Yes,
like that.
It's clear that somebody has decided, don't talk about it. And as I understand it, it was even being treated as a terrorist organization up to quite recently.
Yeah.
That perhaps is not known as much. And there would have been more objection, if you like, by Africans outside of Kenya, had that been really public knowledge as much as it. We just assumed, and wrongly so, we should remember not to do that. We've assumed that Kenyan were revering their heroes. That they would be on the money. There would be statues everywhere. I just understand the general in Nairobi was quite recent.
Yeah.
How the hell has that been allowed to happen?
Imagine that.
You know? So we really need a jigging of all of this.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I have to cut this conversation. And but the final words I want to know. And I'll start with you, Pigeon, and then Glenn, you can wrap it up. Pigeon, in this modern world that we're living in, this internet age, this AI age, what does the Pan-African dream mean to you?
It means a lot. I remember yesterday talking about Pan-Africanism, then we were hacked. The meeting were hacked by some white men who came on talking nonsense and abusing us. I don't know where they came from. So we've been talking about digital space in our forums, but we realize there's no sovereignty in this digital world.
Okay.
There's no African sovereignty digital initiative. So we must actually be cognizant that our data is used out there during this struggle.
Okay.
And that data is used by those countries to actually attack us. Microsoft and the rest have our data, but we don't have sovereign data and Pan-Africanized data here. So the biggest struggle to our generation of this digital world is that our data that is freely available online might be another tool to be used to enslave us in the next generation. And therefore we need to start thinking the direction of neo-colonialism, picking digital aspect. And we must see how we are going to save the next generation out of that, because if we don't, we will produce actually their generation of their civilization in our young kids and the rest.
So do you think like Africa as a whole should relearn and unlearn what we've been taught for the future of our generation?
Yeah, but I don't think their model of AI and everything else will work to liberate us. I think we need to come with our model of AI and everything else will be, so that even as we generate our young kids, because you see, their education has misled the previous generation and this generation, their AI will also mislead the next generation. So we need to see how we are going to be very strategic to ensure that we teach what is ours to the next generation.
Fantastic. Glenn,
And
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about what the meaning of Pan-Africanism is in this day and age, where we're seeing there's a lot of influence from media, the internet, AI now, as you've heard Pigeon talking about that?
I think that, look, we have to be in control of our own technology. This meant, that no one could communicate. Yeah. A power cut meant that your internet, etc., is gone. What Israel is doing to Palestine, they cut off the internet. They shut down a whole country. The possibility that AI will be used to shut us down is real. So one of the things that I've been saying, we're very much utilizing for our communication as Pan-Africanists across the globe. Our next family gathering will be hybrid. We will have to use the technology. But somebody need to be in control from an African perspective. But you see, we must remember also that we are very much part of the technical age. We are many places the inventors of these things.
In fact,
GPS it was created by an African. The mobile phone was invented by an African.
That's right.
Not known by many people. But what the reality is, it's not controlled by us. And we need our own control, because someday somebody is going to pull the plug in the midst of something that we're doing because they decide they don't agree with what we're saying. We see that in small stages, in the way Facebook is controlling and X or whatever it's called now. So the reality is, we are joining in a very, very fast pace the global communication network. And it's not ours. It's like somebody's putting us on a ship.
Exactly.
And not telling us where we're going.
It's amazing. That's how
we should learn and relearn.
We've got to learn how we have contributed to it and get our own control of our own means of communication so that we're not at the behest of people who have no interest in our progress and want to spoon-fed us.
All right.
African liberation should be now, and it's been delayed for too long.
All right, thank you so much, and that's how we wrap up. That is Glenroy Watson. He's the Secretary General, UK chapter of the Global African Congress, and of course our brother, Pan-African activist, that is the one and only Pigeon Odi Mwengu. Imekuwa all about the Africa unification, the struggle for reparations, restitution, and repatriation.
We're coming home.
Damn.
People are coming home. People are repatriating.
We're coming back home.
In one word, my friend Glenn, in the simplest way possible, in just less than a minute, for a Pan-African who want to join this Congress and to be following this, the way the things are going or opening up, how should people join you?
Well, in Kenya, obviously, we have Pigeon and others here, and there will be wider publicity on that. I'm contactable. I can give you my international number, but internet and email. So it's +44 74 11 11 30 98. And as been said, I'm the secretary. So my email is secretary, GAC, UK. It must be remembered that the UK is lowercase.
Okay.
It makes no difference to the algorithm, I suspect, but
probably
we want that recognition that it's not given the same level of importance as us. So it's GAC UK lowercase at AOL.com.
AOL. Pigeon, any contact information you want to put out in case of partnerships, inquiries?
Yeah, as you said, we are forming a global Pan-African Congress at Kenya and East African region to bring together all reparatory justice and movements that are trying to fight for the repair of our society. And of course, you can reach me out, of course, via +254 7143 191 20 or podimwengu@gmail.com. So let's get in touch, and what we believe, we are forming organization of organizations. So let's come together so that we interconnect, then we can push our agenda.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, asanteni sana, gentlemen. Once again, we're saying happy holidays. It's Jamhuri Day out there. So nataka kuwapatia pesa. You, Kevin, I told you I have to take you for nyama choma. So now, guys, you can get a conversation sahi, by the way. You can find us online if you're excited about hanging out with us at the 10. Unaweza tupata hapa hivyo online on www.vibesradio.co.ke. And on the frequency right here in Nairobi, 104.5. Kev?
Yeah, man, kama kawaida, you know the drill. We're not changing, man. They don't change that dial, man. Kama kawaida, 98.7 to area za Mombasani, 98.8 in Nyeri, Maika. European, Meruopean, my people out there, 107.1. And of course, bigger Almas, you've been streaming online from vibesradio.co.ke. We love you for free, my people. Yeah,
exactly. Tukirudi, naenda kukuelezea vile unaweza jishindia do. All this courtesy of Tazama Utuzwe. You have a chance to make yourself hundreds of thousands of shillings this festive season. Na ni rahisi sana. Kitu unafaa kufanya ni tafuta phone yako. Kisha get usikuwe na pressure internet, hapana. Tafuta phone yako alafu save this pay bill number 145656 and just like that, Buddha kakiru iko kwa mfuko. Nitakushow vile unaweza dandia situation.
Na pia at the same time kivu about the African holidays.
Yeah, bro.
Nimeambo nikumbushe watu manze, on this time of the Christmas time ndio the Africa wana celebrating holiday yao inaitwa Kwanza. The Kwanza holiday.
I like that.
Time ya Africa hapo za Christmas. So me, I'll be celebrating Kwanza. I don't know about you.
You will be the high priest of Kwanza.
I'll be the Father Christmas of Kwanza.
I mean, we're all in this conversation.
Yeah,
as black people.
Manze, Pan-African dream is a reality and it will come to be, even if it's not now.
Yeah, bro.
But in the future, our children will eat the fruits of this Pan-African dream.
I love that. Good morning.
Africa, arise. Vibes Radio.